okay, I'm going to go do this cold plunge after I work out. Well, hold on a minute. You tore up all your muscle tissue. You want to grow. And then you just went and jumped in the cold plunge and shut down all the growth factors, that you shut the inflammatory process down. Maybe that's not the best time to do it. All of that stuff is important, but you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So you find a professional who knows the answers to these questions. And so this is why I love what I do. Not only am I treating thousands and thousands of people who are doing these things and seeing what the outcomes are, but we're studying it and keeping up on the research or doing the research.
Welcome to the Combat Creative Podcast, where we explore the heart of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, uncovering its creative, entrepreneurial, and leadership qualities with guests who embody what it means to be a leader in our BJJ community. Now on 3, 1, 2...
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Combat Creative Podcast. And are you a practitioner who has struggled with injuries or cutting weight? Well, stick around, because on today's episode, I have Dr. Jeremiah Fabry, primary care physician who specializes in longevity and regenerative medicine. What does that mean?
Yeah, those are some big words, and I think, people can tend to get confused by that. But if you're looking for it, I promise you know exactly what it means. Yeah, so I think I'd clarify a little bit. My title is Advanced Practice Chiropractor. So I actually started off my career as a chiropractor, and I went down that pathway. My mom had a back injury, and they wanted to do surgery, and she went to the chiropractor, and I was in 6th grade. It was amazing what he was able to accomplish with her, and I decided at that moment that that's what I wanted to be. When I got finished with chiropractic school, I realized there were a lot of barriers to really accomplish the things I wanted to. Sure. And there was a federal government program where they were trying to fill the family practice void that, our country still is dealing with today. And so they developed this advanced practice chiropractor role where we would move into primary care, essentially. I think the program, for the most part, has kind of dissipated. Most states did not create a licensure for this particular practitioner. And mainly that's probably due to the fact that nurse practitioners and PAs kind of came on the scene in great numbers, and they're filling those roles really well. So in most states now, I go with a dual licensure for chiropractic and nurse practitioner. What do the words mean? Longevity and regenerative medicine. So I approach healthcare differently than what your standard mainstream medical experience is going to be. I think the best way to describe that, okay, so if you have a problem, let's say that you have high blood pressure or you have muscle spasms, okay, we could talk a little bit about that because this is a big problem in Jiu-Jitsu in particular, right? So you get these muscle spasms. So what's a solution? You go to mainstream medicine. What's the solution? Well, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I can tell you whether it's standard of care recommendation or not, what they're going to do is probably throw you some muscle relaxers. Probably going to get flexural, okay? What does flexural do? It basically down regulates your entire central nervous system so that, now your muscles aren't going to be overstimulated and you lose those muscle cramps. But that was like a bazooka at the problem, right? Because you had a muscle cramp in your foot, right? You're just trying to compete in a tournament, and you're worried this is going to happen. Well, you can't go compete in a tournament if your entire central nervous system has now been, reduced to operating on one cylinder. So that would be mainstream medicine. Longevity and regenerative medicine, preventative care. What we're going to do is we're going to try to figure out, why is this happening? It all comes down to your cells. Every single human being is basically its own ecosystem. You're unique. You're made up of billions of cells that are communicating with one another, and they're running things. And so what we're doing is we're taking this primary care paradigm where you're coming with, let's say, a sinus infection. Hey, we've got to deal with that. Antibiotics work great. We've got plenty of studies that say this is the approach that we're going to take on that. You're going to recover. It's predictable. It's reliable. It's safe. But you come to me with, the muscle cramp issue, or maybe you come with diabetes, right? Mm-hmm. How's that approach going to be different? We're gonna actually look at this from a more cellular level. I mean, they're communicating. That communication has been disrupted, and we need to figure out how to make it right again. And if you could do that, if you could really figure that out, I mean, we're just scratching the surface right now on this stuff, but if you could really figure this out, you could get people who are living to 140 years old and still competing.
What I think of a lot of the people I bet at jiu-jitsu in the last, 4 years almost of training, they're a unique group of people. They're not afraid to take steps to get the most out of their life.
Yeah.
They don't really like doing what everybody else does. And so sometimes I see people have issues or problems and not go to the doctor because maybe they don't trust the mainstream.
Right.
And I think it's interesting if more people can find that they have other options for injury prevention or health. Maybe they will be more willing to actually fix some of the things that they're struggling with instead of just taking ibuprofen. I mean,
I think when you look at something like jiu-jitsu or mixed martial arts in general, again, mainstream medical community is kind of going to frown on this. Like, you're out there trying to hurt somebody, right? I mean, it's artful.
What do you expect? Like, you're hurt?
Yeah, and do you really want to go? I mean, I've been fight doctor for years, and I can't tell you how many times, like, a kid will get knocked out. You know that there's a concussion. You know he needs to get over to the hospital, and they're just not going to go. They don't want to try to explain themselves. The nurses treat them different. The doctors treat them different, kind of like an attitude of like, you did this to yourself. We need doctors who are going to look you in the eye and say, what's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish here? I don't care. Like, my goals aren't important. What I want isn't important as a doctor, right? I might have some guidelines that I'm going to operate by to keep things safe. But you know what? If you want to be the best fighter in the world, or you just want to be a weekend warrior, like, my job is to figure out how to provide you with the tools so that you can accomplish that.
Yeah. Another reason why I'm interviewing you is because I know you're training jiu-jitsu now, and you've been into the sport for quite a while. Can you just talk a little bit about that? What kind of piqued your interest? I know several doctors or chiropractors who are afraid to try it because they think, well, if I hurt my hands, that's my job. And I'm like, you could say that about almost any career. Not that, like, if I get hurt and I can't work, it doesn't help me either. So just kind of talk about how you got into it, what you enjoy about it so far, and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, I would say I've been involved with MMA in general since I was about 15 years old. It probably goes further back than that. I mean, my father was very involved in this stuff. So he's always pushing us towards it, whether we liked it or not. But it was probably around 15, 16, I was really into it. Especially, I saw Royce Gracie beat Ken Shamrock. Yeah. We should talk about Frank Shamrock. But Royce Gracie beating Ken Shamrock is like, okay, I was a skinny little string bean kid. If this guy could do that and against a WWF wrestler, I don't know if the kids even know WWF anymore. That's
WWE.
Yeah. I think there was a lawsuit and they changed it, right?
Yeah, but
when I was a kid, WWF was the thing, and he basically went in there and I mean, it was like a chess match, and he took them apart piece by piece, minute by minute, and those matches went on for a long time. Because there was no time limit. You had to submit.
Especially the second time he fought some of those people. Like, the first time he fought Shamrock, it went kind of
It was quick, right?
But the second time he kind of figured it out, and it took a lot
and
longer.
Then Dan Severn came on the scene. And so, I mean, like, you had guys who started to figure this out. Now put him against, like, a legitimate wrestler, and he's got a little bit of a competition. But, he was still winning these fights. And so that sparked the interest. Sure. I started training. My dad started buying me the videos to watch. And so, I mean, I was really into it. We had the little fight club thing going on in the basement of the house with my friends. I mean, and so that passion never left. Over the years, I've had some professional UFC fighters for patients. Okay. So I've gotten to get some up close and personal experiences there. I mean, just really passionate about it.
You're training now, though. So you're training now.
Yeah. So how does it get me here? I mean, I have been moving my whole life. I haven't. I think we moved 23 times. My wife and I counted throughout our life, just chasing contracts, chasing schooling, all of these things we're doing. So I have dipped in and out of jiu-jitsu throughout that process. I've had my kids involved in it, but never enough time to be committed. I was always too busy, and we moved to Panama City, and there's a school there that I kept getting invited to, And I kept saying exactly what you're saying. I was like, you know what? At this point in my life, it's too late. I've always wanted to do it. I would have loved it when I was 25.
Right.
But I have to go to work the next day. I have a family I have to take care of. And one night my dad called me and he's like, hey, we're going to class tonight. And bring the boys. And me and the boy, or we can't tell my dad no. So, okay, Dad, we'll see you over there. We drove all the way there. We're complaining about it. I'm like, guys, this will be the only night we'll do it. Don't worry about it. I can't keep this up. And it's funny because, I mean, this is how you started this question out was, you know, about going to work the next day. I was terrified. I was going to get out there and some eager, you know, white belt was going to,
No, I know.
you know, knee sprain or put me in some arm lock and I'm not going to tap out fast enough and I'm going to be, you know, I just can't at this point in my life. But that group of guys was amazing. We had a great time. There a lot of self-control, and it was a lot of guys my age and thinking the exact same thing. You know, I mean, that's how we'd start the roll. Little hand slap, fist bump, and they're like, "Listen, I got to go to work tomorrow. I got a family to take care of." I'm like, you know what? But we fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I've only missed like 1 or 2 classes just because I've been out of town a few times. But I mean, we're excited about class. I'm thinking, I wake up in the morning and I'm thinking, you know, all right, classes tonight. I can get through this day thinking about that.
I've known you for a little while now, and I remember a few years ago bringing it up, telling you I was doing it and bringing it up because for me, I got the bug and I wanted you immediately see what it brings into your own life. You want everybody you know and care about to try it as well.
It is funny like that.
It is, they say, it's kind of like CrossFit. I saw a meme like you never have to know if somebody does CrossFit. They're going to tell you and that's all they're going to talk about. That's kind of how jiu-jitsu has become for me and my family. Like we're in circles and I have to tell my wife, okay, we are not going to talk about jiu-jitsu with our friends tonight. We're going to talk about other things. But I remember bringing it up to you and you had said like you were interested and you would like to do it again one day. I remember you would actually like to try it. So I'm glad you're doing it now. I'm glad you're doing it with your boys. And I got to go to class with you on Monday and I'll go this Thursday as well. And I thought my friends and the people that I know that are really intellectual, they have, it's not just this tough, bonehead caveman sport. It's really technical. I think my favorite part is the thinking about it. And I just thought that you would really like it, as well as other people that are, you know, medical professionals. They're smart. They have schooling. It's not just barbaric. So I'm glad you're doing it. And that's really neat.
Yeah, well, I mean, like being a healthcare professional, you do that because you love to solve problems. And, you know, that you don't always find solutions in medicine, right? But jiu-jitsu gives you this opportunity kind of as a man to like approach something and fail at it a few times and then figure it out. And you feel good about that driving home. I mean, it's funny. I'd like to act like I don't care that much, but I can't stop thinking about like, oh man, how I figured out how to escape from that, you know, Americana. And like the guy's been getting me in it week after week after week. And and now they can't get you anymore. Like you really figured out the problem.
They have to go and figure out a new way to be.
You got to figure out a new way. It's like, it literally is like playing chess, which I love too.
I'm maybe a little ahead of you as far as the jiu-jitsu training, but it does start to get fun when, I mean, even to this day when I roll with my professor, he's 14 moves ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I get so excited. So he's a half guard specialist. And so whenever I travel, whatever gym I'm at, I feel like they're always teaching how to pass half guard. So I was laughing with your instructor the other night. I'm like, Ethan, we're doing a half guard pass. And this is all like I ever learn when I travel. So I always get excited. I'm going to go home. I call my wife. I'm like, hey, I got something for Leo, our professor. I got something. And I go and I try to do it. And it never works. Now that's his specialty, but he's always so far ahead.
It's like getting your stuff off YouTube. You're like, I'm going to bring this to class tonight. And it's like,
It is fun now when I'm with some equals, but especially the newer people, I'm able to think, maybe not 14, but like several steps ahead. And it gets so fun when you're tying sequences together. So and that's what becomes fun because now I'm connecting the dots for it all. Well, I just wanted to ask just kind of a couple questions about medical and how that can kind of relate to combat sports. Some health benefits of jiu-jitsu. From your medical perspective, what are some physical and mental benefits for practitioners that are training? Would it just off the top of your head?
Yeah, I would say, obviously the physical benefits are there. I don't think that, you can throw any hit routine at me, any sprint routine. I don't know. There's nothing quite like rolling for 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I push hard, so I usually
do.
I don't like when that match is over. I'm looking for the next guy to roll with, during our free roll sessions, because that's my workout for the day. Like
Right.
I need to go ahead and leave it all on the mat. So I don't know that there's much out there in terms of physical fitness and exercise that is comparable to that physical fitness and exercise that you're going to get from the jiu-jitsu.
Talk about some of the mental benefits that you've kind of experienced in training and how that can apply or help others.
Yeah, I think as far as all that goes, you're men today in general, like there's not a lot of outlets, right? Yeah. I know some guys watch TV. I think all television ends up doing is creating more problems in your mind.
Sure.
There just aren't a lot of outlets out there. We don't have a lot of time. Our lives are stressful. They're fast paced, especially like, I'll hear guys say like, oh, I've got kids and I don't have time to do this. And it's like, you get out there and again, I always go back to that problem solving, and I solve, we're solving these problems and we're pushing hard and we're exerting and we're accomplishing something. And at the end of that, you want to talk about like some form of meditation maybe that really centers you. And it builds your self-esteem. Yeah. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel like you did something.
I think there's a lot in the moment that is super helpful for me mentally, and it is the problem solving, it's the thinking how to get out of things. But I think afterwards there's so much good. I almost always feel so much better when I leave class, and as assuming I don't get hurt. But
do you feel like sometimes not going to class? Like, do you feel like
sometimes I do not feel like training, but that has really started to diminish for a few reasons. We are a part of an amazing academy that is a professionally run environment. It's clean. And I don't just mean like clean, like it's sanitized. Like it's just the culture in the academy is so good.
It's important.
The teamwork is so good. I feel like if I don't show up, I'm kind of letting the team down because there's people there that are going to get ready for competition and they need me to roll with them. And they're trying to really work on takedown, and I'm good at takedown defense. So that has really gotten away since I've joined a new gym. I think culture's everything. And if you're at a place where you find yourself constantly thinking, I don't want to show up tonight, it may not be jiu-jitsu, it may be your academy.
There's a aspect of health to that too, right? We're talking about, mental and emotional, and
sure,
but it's, you've got a family kind of. And so, there's something to that.
Well, anytime I hear anybody say, well, I'm too busy to train. My lifestyle is too busy. My kids I'm like, what, you don't think mine is?
Right.
I'm married too. I have 3 kids. They do sports. We serve at church on the weekends. I own my own business, which isn't nearly as glamorous as it sounds. It's long days, and I find time to train. So I encourage my friends when I'm trying to get them to come try out a class to, view these things as, like, you're viewing them as like obstacles. I want you to view them as hurdles. Like that's my self-help.
Or maybe like, you're talking about busy, but like, I'll spend a whole day in clinic solving all of these really complex problems.
Sure.
And so for me, I can get done with a day like that and go, I just don't have it in me to go to class. But what I would say is that I do. Okay. Because, and it's funny, you mentioned your commitment to your team, and I feel the same way. I feel like if I'm not there, I'm going to be letting some people down. Right. And, so that commitment gets me there, but I don't ever leave and go, oh, yeah, it would have been the right decision not to come. I'm always happy that I went. I always feel better that I went and did it.
Love it. When it comes to jiu-jitsu, there's a lot of injuries. It can be. And I just want to talk about injury prevention first. How would you recommend practitioners, especially maybe beginners, approach jiu-jitsu training, maybe to minimize injury, or what to do when they do get injured? I know that's broad.
I think most beginners are the ones that cause the injuries, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
That's my experience. It's funny to talk about injuries in this and prevention. I leave every class, and I might not know when I walk out of there that I'm injured, but I definitely wake up the next morning and have a minute to myself, it's kind of a running joke among the guys. But I think injury prevention for beginners, what I'm constantly telling our beginners is like, calm down, relax. Like they don't know anything yet, so they feel like they've got to bring their strength and their energy to the table.
Because that's all they have when you're starting off. You don't have technique.
Yeah, so it's like, you know what you need to do? You go to that first class and you kind of get a feel for it. And you know what? You're not better than anybody there, no matter how strong you think you are, how long you've been working out. So just be okay with that, because you're going to get good fast, right? Like if you have those skills and you are strong and you're in shape and you're healthy, like you're going to pick up on a few things and you're going to be dangerous quickly. So just be patient for that. But calm down, relax, and pick an objective. Yeah. So don't go for everything that you have ever seen on YouTube or learned, or what you feel like, okay, I've got the arm, but the leg looks available, so I'm going to that. Oh, look, now I got his head with half of my arm, so I'm going to try to squeeze it, and maybe he's going to tap out. You're just going to hurt yourself, and you're going to hurt other people. Pick an objective. What's my objective? All right, my first thing I want to do, I've got to get past this guy's guard. All right, I get past the guy's guard. Let me get my chest to his chest. All right, let me get the underhook. Like,
little things.
Yeah. You learn some of these really small things, 3 steps. And then as you're working around with these guys during your free roll, apply those things. Okay, I got to try it with this guy. And you're going to learn it was harder with this guy than it was with that guy. And with this guy, you couldn't even do it at all. And I think having a plan, going into it prepared like that, and being focused is going to be the best thing at injury prevention.
My advice for beginners often is, and I'm even still doing it to this day, is 2 things. I also have an objective. I would go in the beginning and just say, my goal is to not tap due to exhaustion. I don't know if you remember those beginning days.
That's a great objective.
Just not to hurt yourself, but think, okay, can I play defensive and survive to where I'm not tapping due to exhaustion? I remember one day my professor, John, pulled me over at the end of the class, and it wasn't even over yet. We still had a few rounds, and he was really pushing us, and he said, that is the last time you will ever tap due to exhaustion. And I just said, yes, sir. And that was the last time I tapped due to exhaustion.
I mean, what did you change? How did you?
It was all mental. It was mental, and also not putting myself in. Try to be more defensive with not putting myself in that same situation.
Yeah.
So if I know I'm getting smothered, what can I do to not get smothered?
Right.
The other thing is...
But you have to get smothered to know that you don't ever want that to happen again, right? So that...
Another piece of advice for beginners is whatever were trained that day, it's almost like putting a period at the end of the sentence. I say, go do it. If you can, look to work it in your first roll.
Yeah.
It may happen, it may not. I wouldn't say force it, but especially your first roll, maybe your rolls for that night, see where you can work that in a real roll situation. Super helpful with kind of almost cementing that technique into your mind.
Yeah, because we don't rehearse it at full speed. So you really don't know, It's good you got that technique down, but until you try it against somebody who's trying to kill you.
I want to talk to you about pain management as far as all my friends who wake up every morning and pop ibuprofen. It becomes a joke. They take their multivitamin and they take their ibuprofen. And sometimes it's a joke, but I feel like most of the time it's true. I saw a great meme yesterday. It was of this celebrity kind of wandering around lost, and the background was the bloodstream, and it was the ibuprofen trying to figure out what to not inflame.
Yeah,
so I just wanted to ask you about that. And is that a good idea, or is there another alternative in your opinion?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of alternatives. I think I'd say the first answer to the question is you need to find a primary care doctor or specialist who, does focus on things like longevity and regenerative medicine, metabolic medicine. Because if you don't have somebody like that in your corner, it's going to be a constant struggle. I mean, so what do you try to do? You avoid the doctor and you try to self-treat. And so, you're talking about these guys popping an ibuprofen, which is classified as an NSAID, okay? And there's a few different NSAIDs out there. But basically the side effects of NSAIDs are not good. So, it affects your digestive system. So you're probably going to end up with stomach ulcers or gastritis eventually, right? It's not going to happen right away because, guys have probably been doing this for years every single day, right? But that's what's happening. We're stripping the lining of the stomach. You're affecting your bone health. You're affecting your muscle health. And then let's think about this, right? You're talking about somebody who has injured themselves, right? And so they want to heal. Well, healing happens through the inflammatory process. That is, we think of it as a bad word, but you need the inflammation. You need the immune system response to actually heal that ligament.
It's like we're telling the body's like, hey, I'm going to heal you by inflaming you real quick. And we're like, nope,
we're going to shut you down. Right. And so I even have questions about, in my world, obviously people are doing a lot of the out of the box things like a cold plunge, for example, and it's like, okay, I'm going to go do this cold plunge after I work out. Well, hold on a minute. You just went and lifted weights in the gym. You tore up all your muscle tissue. You want to grow. And then you just went and jumped in the cold plunge and shut down all the growth factors, that you shut the inflammatory process down. Maybe that's not the best time to do it. Maybe there's another time of the day. All of that stuff is important, but you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. So you find a professional who knows the answers to these questions. And so this is why I love what I do, because not only am I treating thousands and thousands of people who are doing these things and seeing what the outcomes are, but we're studying it and keeping up on the research or doing the research. But at the end of the day, this all comes down to cellular health, right? So we talked about the cell, it wants to be in what's called homeostasis. All that means is it wants to operate efficiently. It doesn't want to work too hard. You want a cell that doesn't over-respond to stress, but also doesn't under-respond to stress. And that cell is going to operate your body with perfection, okay? That cell is what we're looking for. So how do we get to that point? Right. You shoot it with a bazooka of NSAID, right? And what happens to your cells? So you went way upstream and you shut off this inflammatory mechanism that is actually healthy for your body. Downstream, the cells, they're seeing that as stress, okay? So now you keep stimulating those cells with that stress over and over and over. And eventually the cell can't handle it anymore. And so the DNA inside the cell gives new instructions and says, we need to change the way that we're dealing with this stress because it's too much. And in a lot of cases, the answer to that is called senescence. And senescence is basically your cell goes zombie. So it says, we can't handle the stress anymore. We're just going to we're going to keep operating on this really low level. And we're going to send out cries for help. It sends out all these inflammatory markers. And the problem is then that cell affects the cell next to it and the cell next to it and the cell next to it. And you end up with a whole series of cells that have gone into the state where they're basically producing chaos. And guess what? You see that as a stomach ulcer. Okay. So is there a better way to approach this? Yeah, there's a lot better way to approach this. If we can get down and we can figure out well, first of all, what's the stressor? Okay, so in this case, it's jiu-jitsu. So we're not taking that stressor away, right?
No.
There's some things we could do, physical therapy type rehabilitation exercises and whatnot to try to just make sure you're strong, make sure your nutrition's on point. All of these things deliver the information into the cells that they need to make sure that they're running properly. And then, so what do you do from there? So I'll use my own life as an example, okay? Because have you hurt yourself yet in jiu-jitsu?
Okay,
where it's been months and you're still going in that shoulder? Okay. So I can't have that happen, right? We have some tools in our toolbox. So, what'll happen to me, I had a pretty good knee injury a few months ago where, I was trying to sweep a guy and I twisted that knee and I heard it. I heard the back of it. I knew it was a ligament. I've had enough knee injuries and surgeries in my lifetime just from playing sports that I just thought, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm going through this again. And then it hit me, well, hold on a minute, right? I practice longevity and regenerative medicine. What kind of tools do I have in my toolbox? And so thinking about it like this, how do I signal the cells in there to do what I need them to do? I don't want to decrease the inflammation, so I didn't jump to an NSAID. I want the inflammation to come into play. But you know what I also don't want to do? I don't want, as that inflammation lays down new material, I don't want it to lay it down haphazardly in the scar-like fashion we typically see that reduces my range of motion. I'm athletic, right? I'm trying to compete. I need to maintain these things. I need the muscle to grow back stronger. So I was at the gym. I tried to do a leg workout after that, and I was like, all right, I can't. I can't do the squat. I can't do the lunges. This is ridiculous. I got to do something. And so I had a practitioner of mine that I know prescribed me some BPC 157, which is a peptide. It's a body protection compound. 157 is what that stands for. And basically you inject it into the site. That peptide is like a key to a lock, okay? So it goes into the area and it attaches to a receptor, and that receptor tells the cell, this is how we fix that problem.
Really?
And then your body fixes that problem. By the end of the week, I was back in doing squats. Now, I can promise you I was hurt long enough with that injury before that wasn't just circumstantial.
Right.
And of course, you can go and look this peptide up, and you hear story after story of people that are doing this. In fact, I know Aaron Rodgers, football player, tore his Achilles tendon.
Achilles.
Yeah, you know what he did? He had his Achilles repaired, and then they injected that Achilles with BPC 157, and then he continued to have those injections. It's a little bit of a pain because you inject yourself every single day for a period of time.
Right.
But he was back playing so quickly that people were saying, yeah, I don't think you really tore your Achilles tendon.
His goal was he had just said on an interview that his goal was to actually come back before the end of the season. And by the end of the season, he was already taking snaps in practice.
Yep.
He decided not to rush it because the team was so low in the standings. It would have made no sense. But
he was crazy at practice. I mean, so yeah, and if that injury that he had, if that had happened to you or me, we would be out for a year. We'd be in some crazy boot.
Yeah.
We'd have had that surgery. Our PT would be painful and awful, which I'm not saying that he didn't go through some suffering.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather condense it into a 6-week cycle than stretch it out over a year.
I think the one thing that I love about my jiu-jitsu community is they try to be really intentional about how they live their life. A lot of them are really healthy with how they eat. So it has been very encouraging for me, somebody who's kind of struggled with that, maybe didn't have the examples or the habits in place to help. I've had some really good community of people helping me with that.
I mean, accountability is huge there. So if you have that, people to walk that journey with you, it's a lot easier than when you don't.
And when I think of nutrition and weight loss in jiu-jitsu, it usually lots of times comes in the form of people trying to cut weight for competition. The most common ones throughout the years, just like in wrestling, is water weight. I remember my dad was a wrestler and talking about how he'd be running in the back of the bus with a garbage bag suit on, trying to cut weight. And I remember asking him, yeah, but don't you need all that water in your... I was so it was new to me. And I recently signed up to do my first competition, and I knew I needed to lose weight. I also wanted to fix some things in my body that I was kind of chronically struggling with. And on a call one day, you said, you should try carnivore diet. So I did. I started January 1st. It's now the end of February. I've been doing it almost 2 months now. I lost 24 pounds. I ended up dropping 2 weight classes. So I just wanted to, for the fun of it, talk about that diet real quick, or maybe share to some people watching or listening that there's an alternative to cut weight. And
yeah, I mean,
what do you think about that?
All right, so I've been involved in this world for a long time, and I've helped quite a few fighters cut weight in a healthy way, and I use that word healthy very sparingly, because if you remember how I originally defined how I set my goals are set off what your goals are. So I get it. If a fighter has to cut weight, I understand what they're trying to accomplish. I understand that some of that is not from the medical perspective, especially mainstream medicine. This is not going to be, it's frowned upon. Okay.
So you're hacking your body to
dump. Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing again. You know what the people that are successfully doing this, they understand how the cells work. Okay. So the cell holds the water. So we have to figure out, how do we get the water out of the cell? And so for me, a process like this is so fascinating. And then in turn, you get to that weigh-in, and then we have to figure out how, from the moment you step off of that scale and you walk off of that stage, how can we get the water back in the cell? And if you don't do this right, you want to talk about cramps. unbelievable because you're just disrupting electrolyte balance to make this happen. You're saying, okay, these are the materials that live outside the cell, and here's the materials that live inside the cell, and we're basically going to put more of the materials out here to suck all the water out, and then you're going to pee it out, and then or sweat it out, right? And then we need to turn around and we need to fill the cell with the right materials so the water comes back in and you're hydrated and you're ready to go and you can think clear and you can perform. So I don't know if there's in the actual professional level, there's going to be a better way than that to accomplish that task. Okay. I know you're saying what's the safe way, but for a guy like you who isn't at the professional level and you're just starting to compete, like, please don't do that.
I don't feel like that's sustainable either.
It's not even that it's not sustainable. You know, we talked about like how the cells respond to the stress outside the body. And what happens if you like continually like push that stress? Like, how will you know if you've got pockets of cells in your body going senescent? Like, people die from issues with their kidneys from this stuff, from issues with their heart. That's literally what's happened. Like, it's everything's shutting down around that, right? Like, you dehydrate yourself out. So it's not a safe practice just for the average guy to go out there and do. You know, we're working with the pros. Like, we've got IV bags on site, and I've got stuff in those IV bags that's driving what we're trying to accomplish. Like we're watching this closely. We're constantly monitoring vitals. We're constantly monitoring labs. Like, this is all within such a fine limit, especially with electrolyte balance, that you could send yourself into a really bad position, a cardiac arrhythmia, you know, a seizure. So at the end of the day, for the average guy, I mean, there really is no reason to do that.
Sure.
Do what Jared did, okay? You've got plenty of time before the fight.
2 months.
Let's pick a diet and let's go for it. And I say that on purpose, okay? I mean, I know you did carnivore diet. What's the best diet in the world to do?
You asked me this on the phone. You said, what's the best? You said the one that works? Or
I mean, like, we're all so different, okay? And I will tell you, I have worked with thousands and thousands of people from the metabolic medicine perspective and helping them lose weight and reverse things like diabetes and metabolic syndrome, and it's all connected, right? But I have seen people do it with only vegetables. I've seen people do it with fat only. I've seen people do it with meat only. I've seen people do it by counting calories, by counting carbs, by doing low fat, so I've seen every single one of them work. Even the commercial weight loss programs. So they all work. Now, here's the question.
You said it's the one you're going to stick at to or something.
Yeah, so which one is going to work for you? Because what do most people hate talking about weight loss. And why do they hate talking about it? Because it doesn't work, right? And when I'm saying it doesn't work, I'm saying, okay, yeah, I worked my butt off for 6 months and I lost 20 pounds. And I gained all that weight back in the 2 weeks after I stopped doing that diet.
Right.
And you were tortured for that time. Tortured. It wasn't fun. Every piece of cake and donut, the Starbucks coffee that went past you, like, you wanted that thing, and it took everything within you to just stop it. Guys are going to bed early because they're starving, right? Yeah. You're just drinking so much water. Drink water and take a walk around the block. I mean, we know all these strategies that we tried over the years. So what if you can find a diet where you don't have to have that mental anguish, right? So carnivore diet is appealing, right? Essentially, what I like to say is we isolate the macro, okay, in this kind of a diet. So when somebody's trying to pick a diet, let's isolate the macro. If you're going to do that for a relatively short period of time, you're going to have like pretty good results as far as the weight loss goes. And then you can move into a more balanced place. If it's mental anguish, you're probably not going to move into a more balanced place. The first day back is probably going to be like the large pizza you've been missing.
That's so interesting. I've been on many diets. I've been on some that you've had a hand in at other businesses, and that was my biggest thing. As soon as I hated every diet because I couldn't wait for it to be over, and then I never took the mature and proper steps to tailor off.
Nor has anybody. Yeah.
Carnivore diet was the first diet I've ever done that didn't feel like a diet, and after my 30 days of doing it, I did it for 30 more days.
Yeah.
It's the most wild thing.
You didn't have to talk yourself into it. You're like, hey, maybe I can keep going.
I didn't have to talk myself into it. And I know my professor is a vegan. He always jokes with me. He's like, my meat man, when are we going to start eating vegetables? So, but like, I know a lot of people who thrive on other lifestyles, diets.
I would challenge that though. Do they thrive on that? I don't know. I think that a vegan has to work really hard to make sure that they're not deplete nutritionally.
Sure.
I also believe that the carnivore guy has to work really hard to make sure they're not deplete nutritionally. I have a lot of guys who go on carnivore diet and end up with gout, end up with a lot of muscle cramps, end up with headaches. Is it the diet? Are they doing something wrong?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's genetic, right? A lot of times we can get to the bottom of it. Again, it's looking at cellular health, and it's like, oh, okay, here's a group of supplements, vitamins, minerals, something that you're missing. I probably do this more often with vegans because I feel like there's more vegans out in the world. But where are you getting your B12 from? I mean, this is going to be a big problem, right? Your nervous system functions off of this stuff. Like we have to make sure, again, if you're going to do something like this, and you're gonna tilt your whole lifestyle towards one form of eating, and as some people would like to say, you're eliminating food groups, whatever, right? Everyone's going to be a naysayer about it to some degree, but at the end of the day, where are you getting the missing pieces? Who's like looking over your shoulder and saying, hey, where's the B12, right? Someone's got to be doing that, because what you'll end up doing is you'll end up hurting yourself.
And what do you think about, from what you know about carnivore diet or people that have been on it, what are some of the things that if someone's going to do this diet, I feel like it's very popular right now. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that maybe they should be looking out for?
Well, tell me this. Answer this by telling me, when you first did the carnivore diet, what'd your plate look like? How did you pick your meals?
Before?
Like when you first started it. Right? You're like, okay, I can only eat meat. What was on your plate? Let's say the first week when you're trying to figure this thing out.
When I first started the carnivore diet, I woke up and I was really trying to figure out what to eat. I did the typical meal meats. So I had for breakfast, I had eggs and bacon. Because you don't eat bacon.
Everybody starts with eggs and bacon.
Yep. Lunch, I had a hamburger, and at night, I had a steak.
Okay.
I did the same thing on day 2, and by the end of day 2, I didn't want to touch meat ever again.
Yeah, exactly.
It was... I really didn't know if I was going to be able to do this. By day 3, I realized I don't need to eat breakfast. I'm not hungry. And then I went to Jiu-Jitsu training, and then I didn't really eat my first meal until 2 o'clock, which I've never done that. And I had a steak, and then I went to training that night, and I didn't eat dinner because I didn't want to eat that late before I went to sleep, so I had a protein shake. And I'm like, man, I only ate one meal today. And then that became more common, where I was eating one main meal a day and maybe some very small ones.
And were you ever counting calories or anything to just kind of get a feel for what you're doing?
Never counted any calories. I found on day 5, I had a New York strip steak and I couldn't finish it. And I found it very odd because I didn't really eat that day.
So, I mean, based on what we've been talking about, I mean, can you figure out what's happening there? I mean, your cells are getting a signal and you're in turn responding. And I think, like in America, for example, our cells are getting really bad signals. And so this is why almost any diet works right here. This is the key reason, okay? Because right now our diets are awful. You've got foods that are just so jam-packed with garbage. Now, again, here we're coming from this cellular perspective. We're saying that everything from the outside that happens to us tells our insides kind of what the world around us outside is like. So when you eat a potato chip, which was designed by a scientist to tell your brain that you have found the food type that is going to have everything you need, okay? No one can eat just one. You see what they did is they literally designed something that was completely deplete of nutrition, filled with calories. We put that thing in our mouth. The feel was right. The crunch was right. The brain's like, we hit the jackpot. This is going to be full of vitamin A, vitamin D, whatever. And you're bringing that in, and your stomach goes, nope, we need some more. It wasn't there. Let's eat another one. Let's eat another one. And you literally ate an entire bag of let's say Doritos or Lay's potato chips.
It's like it's like, I'm trying to words to say it. It's almost mental and it's physical.
They're literally manipulating your physiology. That food is sending a signal to your cells to tell your body what to do next. And it's telling you need to eat another one. We didn't get enough of what we were looking for. You can experiment with this. You can prove this to yourself, okay? Get 150 calories of potato chips in a bowl, okay? I can promise you, you're gonna be like, that's all the potato chips that I can have? Okay. Then go get 150 calories of broccoli, okay? After you cut the first giant bag of broccoli open and the second giant bag, and put this in the bowl, okay? Now, finish 150 calories of potato chips, finish 150 calories of broccoli. You're probably not going to finish the broccoli. You're going to hit a point. Why? Because that broccoli sent a signal to your body. Ooh, this is what we were looking for. Gets into your stomach. Your stomach's like, check, we got vitamin this, vitamin that, mineral this, mineral that. We don't need anymore. So if you just literally went on the broccoli diet from the Lay's potato chip diet, you immediately just made a healthier decision. Your body took that signal and said, oh, we can work with this. And guess what? You're going to probably lose a bunch of weight in the first, let's say you stuck to that for 6 months, you're going to lose a bunch of weight. Guess what might happen too? You might have your stomach ulcers might go away. What else might happen? You might start thinking more clearly. But after a while, you're going to need some variety, right? Because really that broccoli isn't bringing you everything. But what is happening on the other side is this major detox. And I know that's like a catchphrase for like kind of quackery out there, right? But we're talking about, like redox, like what's happening in the cell, right? That cell is taking this material from the outside, bringing it in and turning it into energy. We're making ATP. This is like how we function, okay? So if you're not taking in the chip, and we just use the physiological, like, okay, you ate the chip and you felt that and your brain was processing it. We're not talking about even taking that to the next step and the chemicals that they put in that stuff, okay? So you're now eating this chip, and I'm telling you, you read the ingredients on some of the stuff, and you're like, wait a minute, isn't that like an embalming fluid? And wait a minute, isn't that something that they use for like cleaner? And on the cleaner bottle, it says do not ingest, but it's in your ice cream. And so what are those things doing? Those are also coming into your body and giving your cells signal. So what are those signals doing? It's driving you towards senescence. It's driving you towards the zombie state. And now you get the stomach ulcer, or now you get this autoimmune disease that you can't understand. And you're like, I don't know, I was just born this way. And I'm not saying that some people weren't, but I wonder how many people have that problem because they need to clean things up. And if they do clean things up, it doesn't matter which direction, whether they clean it up vegan or carnivore. That's some pure macro right there. You're getting carnivore, you're getting pretty much just straight fat and protein. You're not getting a whole lot of additives there. And say what you want about what they're, medicines they're giving the animals or whatever, but compared to what is in that bag of chips, I promise you, much better. Same thing with the vegetables. We could talk about insecticides and we can go down that pathway, and you need organic. You really don't. You want to get healthier? You just need to clean up that industrial process garbage. How can you do it? It's like what I said to you, what can you stick with? That's the one that you start with. And then we'll just ease our way back into something normal. But again, this is where accountability, this is where having a really good doctor who gets this stuff is standing by your side, helping you every step of the way. That's what it's all about. I'll tell you right now, the professional guys, the top level jiu-jitsu guys, the top level MMA fighters, or they have these people with them all the time. They're asking them questions all the time, getting that guidance, having the stuff put together. I think of Tom Brady. I mean, he talked about that stuff a lot. And he went on all kind of stuff that he got a lot of flack for. Guy wasn't reading a book and figuring it out on his own. No, I mean, you probably go into his house at night and he's got hooked up to an IV with NAD+, seriously, they're doing it right. And these guys are at the top, right? These are some of the best in the world. So why wouldn't we want to do what they're doing? Why don't we? That's how I found peptides in the first place. I'm constantly asking, what are the top guys in the world doing? What are the best guys in the world doing? And I found that a lot of this stuff was really hard to get, really hard to come by, because those guys were taking it all and using it all, and it was being manufactured at that level. Yeah. And so us little guys down here at the bottom, we couldn't get it.
Yeah.
But once I started to figure out and tap into it, unbelievable. I mean, and the results just phenomenal. If I was in the position that I cared enough about changing my diet for better performance in jiu-jitsu, I would get with a doctor like myself, and I would have a thorough evaluation. I'd have a full blood panel run, and then I would fully expect that doctor to sit down and walk through every single value every biomarker that was run, and I want him to tell me why he ran it and what it means to me. It's a long conversation, and you really only need to have it one time, right? Because once you do that, you figure out what your priorities are, what are the things that you need to work on. But if you don't start there, everything's guesswork. you're telling everybody you should do the carnivore diet because it worked great for you.
Right.
But I can tell you, I have husbands that lost 100 pounds on the carnivore diet and wives that tried it and didn't lose 20.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's that? What's going on there? Man, her hormones are out of whack and she's often, starting perimenopause. You got to look at this stuff. There is no like one size fits all. Like I said, we're our own ecosystem. We're all unique.
Yeah, that's great, man. In closing, what are some of your future goals as a medical practitioner and a jiu-jitsu practitioner?
Yeah, I don't know. Jiu-Jitsu, I'll tell you, like one of the things I love most about it is that I do it with my sons, my two boys. And, when you're busy, it's hard to connect with your kids, especially as they get older. I don't think you're quite there yet, but
no,
you're going to get to a point where, as they move into that teenage, dad is not as cool as their friends, not as cool as the video games. But I know at least 2 nights a week, because, they have jobs and they're in school, but I know at least 2 nights a week that we're going to get a ride to the gym. We're going to roll. I do my best to try to, all the practice sessions and everything, all the skill training that we're doing before free rolling. I try to always do that with my kids because that's why I'm there. I want to build that relationship. I will continue with jiu-jitsu because of the family-like culture, the relationships that I've built with the guys that I work out with there as well. So that's been kind of an unexpected bonus. Mm-hmm. Not sure how far. And I've never really cared about the whole belt thing and the colors and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's fun, but I mean,
it's not why you're doing it.
It's just not why I'm doing it. And so, if whether I become a black belt or a brown belt, I mean, I know everyone has these aspirations. I don't even know really what that means or what that pathway looks like. I just haven't had the time to sit and map it out and decide if it's for me. And it may not. That something else may come along in life that's more important, and I'll pursue that. But for right now, it's perfect for where I am in life and for what I'm trying to accomplish. As far as medicine goes, I am just immersed in this world of regenerative medicine and longevity and preventative care. And I kind of started out with a passion for reversing the progression of diabetes, right? It's one of the biggest problems we have in our country. Obesity, biggest problems we have in our country. If we could solve those problems, if we could cut them off at the knees and really change things there, we change the world literally, right? So that is my drive. I do a lot of consulting right now for primary care practices that are trying to bring this into their clinics because you don't learn this in medical school,
right?
Kind of a little bit of an offshoot of that, like hormone replacement therapy, for example, like guys doing testosterone replacement or even girls doing estrogen, the estradiol, the progesterone, the testosterone. You don't learn that in medical school. And the reason is because it's not a disease, right? We get old. These hormones naturally change. So you go into a primary care mainstream medical facility and you're like, hey, I want to get my hormones checked because I'm super tired, libido's low, I can't recover from my workouts. And they're kind of like, sorry, that's what happens when you get older. I'm not going to prescribe that for you. I'm not even going to run the blood test to see if it's a problem because I know it is. You're getting old. But it's important to guys like me. It's important to guys like you, right? Like at the end goal, I want to be there, like not just like watching the people I care about. I want to be involved. I want to crawl around on the floor with my grandkids and my great grandkids. I want to be there for the people that I love for the rest of my life. Well, no matter how long that is, I don't want to be down sitting on the sidelines. So to me, it's not a disease. It's a quality of life issue, but that quality of life issue is important. And so I want to try to really help these primary care practices to understand that, okay, get the proper training in it, because like I said, it's not something you learn in medical school because it's not a disease. But then also to kind of change the thought process on that. Let's start focusing as healthcare providers on what the goals of our patients are. And let's start providing them with real, true, practical tools that get them results. Yeah. And okay, within the guidelines of being safe, right? That's what we're here for, right? We're not trying to just, we're going to just try this and we're going to try that. But come on now, like something like testosterone replacement therapy, been around a long time. There's really no research to dispute its benefits. regardless of the 3-person study from like the early 1900s that they pull out. Come on now.
We'll talk about that. It
gets ridiculous.
Hormone replacement theory next time and how that relates.
Absolutely.
How.
But that's the long and short of it, is that I want to try to change healthcare. I know myself, I only have the capacity to do so much, but I really am passionate about the consulting, because it gives me the opportunity to teach people who are out on the front lines, and I can impact so many more people that way.
Well, Dr. Jeremiah, thank you for being on the episode today and talking. Where can people find you online if they want to learn more about you and the work you're doing?
You can find me on Instagram at Dr. Jeremiah Fabry. I also dabble in Twitter or X, shall I call it? Yeah. And that is at Dr. J Fab. So it's just at DRJFAB.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. With all the podcasts you could be listening to on the internet, the fact that you took time out of your day to listen to this one, we so greatly appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.